So today's demo is all about time management, crucial to a Chinese kitchen. Really simple dish. We've got broccoli beef with oyster sauce, followed by some steamed rice on the side. So we've got our own magic formula. One dish has got to have your protein. I've got some steak here, plenty of veg, but more importantly, good sauce and a balance of sauce to bring out the true flavor of Chinese cooking. Now there's 5 simple steps to cooking a good Chinese meal. Number 1, menu planning. I've got 2 dishes here, effectively. I've got my stir-fried broccoli and beef with oyster sauce, and then my rice that goes on the side. But which one do I do first? The rice has to go first because it's going to take a little bit more time to steam through, and it has to be given that time to get nice and fluffy. Step 2, get yourself organized. We've got all my ingredients ready right in front of me. I've got ginger, garlic, spring onion. I've got some carrot, some broccoli, corn flour. That's for later on. Actually, that's going to go with my protein. Your protein, I've got a bit of steak here, but really, you can use whatever you want. That's the beauty of our type of cooking. It's incredibly versatile. So chicken, prawns, or if you're vegetarian, go for some tofu. Over here, our sauces, the main driver of flavor in Chinese cooking. We've got some oyster sauce, some Shaoxing rice wine, a little bit of oil for the cooking, and then our rice to go on the side. Again, my rice, my pot is ready. Everything is here, ready for me to cook. So step 3, preparation, the most important part to any kitchen. I'm going to actually start with my rice. I'm going to wash and cook the rice. Now the rice will take about 25 minutes all in all. So I want to get it on so that I can prepare the rest of my meal whilst the rice is cooking. I've got to marinate my beef. That beef needs marinating Chinese style because we pack that savory flavor into the dish from the start. And then I've got my vegetables that obviously need chopping or slicing, and that can take a little bit of time. So I'm going to slice my vegetables, get everything ready, get everything organized before I finish off my dish. So when you're washing your rice, the Chinese tradition I was always taught was a minimum of 3 times and really massage the rice through. You can't wash it 4 times because 4's an unlucky number. So most importantly, what you're trying to do is wash out that excess starch so that each grain of rice is nice and clean, and when it cooks, is separate. Next tip on rice. Quantity of water. If you're doing small quantities of water and you're looking at cups of rice to water, then it tends to be 1 cup of rice to 1 cup of water. If it's larger quantities, say you're cooking for 6 people or more, then it tends to be slightly more water to rice. So about 1 1/4 cups of water to 1 cup of rice. So this is easy, but you've got to follow the rules. Bring your rice to high heat first. So once it's vigorously boiling, you want to turn it right down to a nice simmer and then cover it with a lid. We're going to cook the rice until the level of the water evaporates enough to hit the level of the rice. And at that point, I'm just going to switch it off. Leave it for 15 minutes and it will start to steam through and fluff up nicely. So we're going to go straight onto our protein and then cutting our veg. As I said, we're going to marinate your meat. I've got some beef here, so some sirloin steak. You can use any type of steak. Sirloin or ribeye or rump are pretty good. I'm going for sort of flat, bite-sized pieces. In Chinese cooking, the thinner your steak, the better. And actually, when you're cutting steak, I mean, Western style, sort of there's a belief that if we cut against the grain, that you get a slightly tender, more tender piece of meat. And you can see the slicing method I've got here is long slicing and long sawing motions rather than sort of short, sharp methods. If you go short and sharp into a piece of meat or vegetables, then you create teeth in what you're cutting. What I want is a nice, smooth piece of meat. It's a lovely steak here. Now the idea with fine slicing in Chinese tradition is that, first of all, your food can cook quickly. So that's why the preparation is important. And secondly, Chinese tend to have, in the old days, very big families. So if you slice one piece of steak into 100 pieces, you can feed a lot more people. So straight into the bowl, we're going to marinate it with a tablespoon of oyster sauce for that deep, savory and umami flavor. Okay. Right. So a tablespoon of your oyster sauce. And then most importantly, give that a good massage through. I've also got some corn flour here. Now there's different ways of using corn flour in Chinese cooking. We're trying to sort of almost make a velvety sauce, and that nice smooth sauce, nothing too gloopy. The traditional way of making a thicker sauce is to make a corn flour paste out of corn flour and water and sort of pour it into the stir-fry sauce at the end. My preference, however, is actually almost a combination of the traditional and more modern techniques of Chinese cooking. And so I like to put my corn flour into my marinade with my meat so it cooks or sears nicely in the wok and then just sips slowly into the sauce later on. There's also a sort of technique called velveting in Chinese cooking, where you use egg white, corn flour, and marinate that meat, and then sort of either blanch it in oil or water, which is quite a strange way of cooking. You can do that. It's an extra step that maybe isn't required if you're just cooking a quick, tasty, simple, healthy meal. Most importantly, you want to get all the flavor around the meat, not sitting in the bowl. So give it a good massage. So, onto your veg prep. Everything really quite simple. The general gist of Chinese cooking and dishes is if you've sliced one thing, slice the rest. If you've diced something, dice the rest. So we're going to go slices of our ingredients here. I've just got a big bowl for a small bit of rubbish here, but it's quite nice and useful to have yourself organized like this so you don't have to keep going back and forth to your bin. Again, all part of time management. When you're peeling your ginger, a teaspoon or anything blunt is great for peeling. So just scrape, 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 scrape. And then you don't have to worry about cutting yourself or losing too much ginger. Got some garlic. Quite big cloves here, so one clove should do it. My carrot. Again, you can see that it's so simple when your bin's right in front of you. Organization is key. When you're slicing, you can see here I've got a big Chinese cleaver, and actually we tend to use one knife for almost everything in a Chinese kitchen. The surface area of a cleaver is what's very different to that of a 20cm chef knife. That means that I can pick things up really easily, or if I want to bash things, it's really simple. So, if I've got something round like ginger, you place your hand through and go straight through the center of your ginger. When you're using your knife the right way, got two hands for good reason. It's what I call the crab, my non-dominant hand, so my left hand. Three fingers in the middle, then my front legs, little finger, my thumb, then my back legs. My back legs never go in front of my front legs or else I chop them off. Right, the next thing is that it's a crab because my legs are always bent. They're never straight. Most chefs just push their front knuckles over like so to guide the knife. My right hand, my dominant hand, is pushing down and forwards, down and forwards, down and forwards. If it's close enough to the board, then you go down and forwards, and when you come back, you leave the tip of your knife on the board, and you just lift up your wrist. Down and forwards, lift up your wrist, down and forwards, lift up your wrist. And this is how we get nice, fine slices of ginger. If you're cleaning your knife, one finger away from the blade, away from the blade. If you're cleaning your hand, use the back of your knife, not the front. I don't mind just slices of ginger for this dish. Give your garlic a little bit of a bash. And then, again, I'm going to go for slices of garlic. And everything else will follow suit. I'm going to start to sort of compile my mise en place, or in Chinese tradition or School of Wok style, we call it the WOK clock. You start at 12 o'clock with your first ingredients, your ginger and garlic. Chinese mise en place. I'm going to add a few good chunks of spring onion to the base flavour. We use every part of your spring onion. Don't waste. Just throw that last piece away. So 12 o'clock, ginger, garlic, spring onion. That's going to flavour the oil and get things going. And then next up, we need your hardest vegetable. So your hardest vegetable would be your carrot. I do want this carrot to cook nice and quickly, so I'm going to go for nice, fine, sort of diagonal slices. If you don't know what to do with the end piece, just slice it through on one side. Carrot next. Your broccoli. Now actually I want to pre-blanch this broccoli and then put it into the WOK clock again later on. So actually you can use your knife, or if you rather just sort of pick pieces out, you can. Just open it up slightly and then pull those bits apart. So I'm going to put it in the right place on the WOK clock, but we will blanch that in hot water for about a minute or so before I finish it off in a stir fry. Plenty of veg, great to bring those nutrients into your diet. Keep that board clean at all times. And then your chilies, just for a bit of garnish, or some coriander as well, either or. So I'm just going to take your chili in half, and then just take out the excess seeds. And as I've sliced most things here, I'm going to go for nice lengths of chili. Just at the end for garnish. So my meat, the final piece of the puzzle. And then all I've got to do is make up my sauce and finish off the stir fry. So the sauce is really simple, especially with Lee Kum Kee's oyster sauce, which really drives that savory flavor. We're going to go for another tablespoon of oyster sauce. And then you want just enough liquid to sort of help this sauce wrap around your stir fry ingredients. So I've got some Shaoxing rice wine here. I'm going to use 2 capfuls, pretty much 2 tablespoons of rice wine. You can, of course, use water or some stock, whether it's chicken or vegetable stock, instead of your rice wine. It's a really natural flavored stir fry, and the flavor really is going to come from that initial sear of that ginger, garlic, spring onion, and then that combination of that oyster sauce to lift that savory. So my stir fry preparation is done. Step 4, the fun part, cooking. Most importantly when wok cooking, you've got to get your wok to a really good high heat. Now I'm lucky here, I've got a traditional round bottom wok with an induction wok ring, but you can get flat bottom woks too. There's nothing wrong with a flat bottom wok, it just needs to make sure it's got a nice curvature around the edge so you get that nice circulation of heat. The simplest way to explain wok cooking is what we call understanding wok hay, the height of your fire, how to move wok's air around. There are 4 ways to cool your wok down or move that air. Number 1, stirring. It's a stir fry. Number 2, pushing and folding. Pushing and folding. Number 3, a wok toss, if you dare. Pick it up, long push forward and a quick flick back, nice and relaxed. No shaking, just nice and relaxed. And the last one, number 4, the tummy in the head, round and round, back and forwards, round and round, back and forwards. So it's round and round with your spoon, back and forwards with your wok. That'll cool your wok down very, very quickly. Next up, your oil. We're going to take a very small amount of oil to get cooking. I'm talking sort of 1 to 2 teaspoons of oil at max for the whole stir fry. I've got my wok clock ready. And we're going to take a small amount of oil and just baste it around the wok. And you can see that smoking hot straight away. And that shows you how hot that wok needs to be. When your wok's smoking hot, your first ingredients go in. Your garlic, ginger, and spring onion. Most importantly, never lose your sizzle. Can hear that sizzling away. I know I'm cooking this properly. Give it a good tummy in the head, and then that just stirs that round and brings the heat or that smoke out of the wok. Try and keep your ingredients in the wok, not like me. And then just push that to the back. Once you've seared that, then all we need is 1 little bit more oil before the beef, but I'm not going to do too much until I've got my vegetables in. So your veg can go in, and you can either blanch your veg separately, or if you've got water nearby, you can just do a little splash of water, and that will cook your veg through or steam it through very quickly. And that way I don't need to keep bringing things in and out of my wok. Wok toss, again, cooling that wok down. The carrot and your broccoli should cook at similar sort of time, so the broccoli can come in now again, and no added oil required. So broccoli in, again, a little dash of water that will steam your veg through. as I said, you can either blanch your broccoli or stashes of water here or there will quickly steam your veg through without that extra blanching process, which I find a little quicker, especially on small quantities of food. You can see my broccoli cooking through nicely here because the green is starting to go a little green-grey. So even with that sort of teaspoon of water, it cooks through incredibly quickly. Just another splash of water here. Great amount of steam, which means that really bringing the essence of ginger and spring onion out into the veg. You can see here that I'm constantly moving my stir fry around. Again, that's just to circulate that heat, make sure everything cooks evenly. I don't want to overcook my veg. As soon as the excess water has come out of the wok, I'm actually going to just dish this up to allow space to sear my meat. And you can see now I've got a nice clear wok ready to sear my meat. It means that I can get a nicer sort of charred finish on the meat because the wok's not got too much in there. It means that I can get that sort of heat going again. A little bit of oil into the wok, nice and smoking hot. Now I want that oil to be really, really hot before I pour my meat in. Here goes. Just lay that beef into the wok. And sear that nicely for about 30 seconds. Now in Chinese restaurants, they might at this point be sort of doing that velveting process or that blanching in oil to sear the meat. And then turn that over so you've got a nice charred finish on your beef. Sear again. And just keep turning that. And then we're going to start to bring my vegetables back into the wok. So I haven't lost any heat at all. And lastly, your sauce on a really high heat. Oh, smell that rice wine. And that oyster sauce, giving that really great savoury flavour. At this point, I want the sauce to come to a really vigorous boil and then slowly sort of flick it through. And of course, if you feel like the sauce is sticking to the wok at all, then you've got your water nearby. You can add a little bit as you go. So just a splash for me here. Nothing too much. I don't want to get away from that deep savoury flavour. So as you saw, I only used about 2 teaspoons of oil at max. I don't want to overcook my beef at all. I'd rather it be nice and succulent, especially with that cutting against the grain. And you can see here how bright and colourful my stir fry is. Serving up, Chinese style is very simple. The veg and the meat speak for themselves. Make sure you get everything out of that wok. Don't forget your garnish ingredients. got a little bit of red chilli here. If you've got some coriander or spring onion over the top. And then your rice, which has been steaming away nicely now. Remember we did that first. And you can see the separate grains of rice. Perfectly cooked rice. It's nice, fluffy, but slightly sticky rice. And then, of course, it'd be rude not to dig in. Delicious. Most importantly, guys, remember the 5 steps: menu planning, organization, preparation, cooking, the fun part, and then serving the way it should be.